All right, 5 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. How many of you do this? You'll hear a story. It might not be on the news. It might be in your family. And let's say you get in your car and you're driving home, or the next morning you're thinking about it, and somehow your brain kind of dissects it all, and you come up with an idea, and you sort of figure out what the truth really is, right?
Yes.
If something's really, really bothering you about a story, I think we all do that. I remember my father used to, like a couple days after something had happened, he would say, I think I figured it out. I think I know what happened. And I think I'm going to say I inherited it, but I'm thinking it's a human thing. I think we all do this. So we had a guest in the studio, and she was actually a lady who I had gone to school with, although I hadn't remembered her because, well, it's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, she had a personal story happen to her, and I don't want to get into that right now. But the point is, she was thinking about it later on, and she feels like she really figured out the real truth. And in her case, it was a crime. Same thing with this next story. There was a crime. It's up in Wisconsin, too, Robin,
yes,
up in your neck of the woods.
Is, yep.
Dorothy Marcic, I hope I'm saying her name right. She'll correct me in just a second. She's a playwright. My gosh, she's got some credentials too in the playwriting world. Sisters, is that one of them? Sisters?
Yes.
Is that Broadway, off Broadway? She's a professor at Columbia University with over 20 years full-time in academia, a Fulbright scholar, served as advisor to the U.S. ambassador of the Czech Republic. She began her career in the arts as a production assistant on the TV program Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
That's my favorite part.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry. She's got all these credentials, but that's my favorite
And this
part.
is a book called With One Shot. If you're looking at the podcast, I have the cover of the book. I hope I did that right. Oh, nope, it's not there. Let me put it there now. That's the cover right there if you're looking at the podcast. Let's go to our guest, Dorothy Marcic. Good morning, Dorothy.
Good morning, Larry.
Where are you?
Did I get you right? No. Yeah, Larry, right.
Yeah, I'm Larry, yeah.
I'm in New York.
Yeah.
I'm in New York City.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, you probably have a lot of radio shows you got to do this morning, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're talking right now to Larry and Robin. Robin is the lady you spoke to earlier.
Larry and Robin. Okay, great.
So tell me, With One Shot, this is your version of a true story, right?
Yes, it's a true crime book, and it's based on the research I did on police forensic files and court documents, and I interviewed 60 people and did look through all newspaper articles and real estate records and so on. I did a lot of research for about 2 years.
And see, your story...
And murder of my uncle.
Your uncle, yeah. Now,
yes.
I mentioned in the intro, we had a guest, and she was also writing about a murder of a family member.
Done.
That she thought was, but that the police concluded was a suicide. She had a different conclusion. So was that kind of like you? Did you look at this and say the police got it wrong?
Yeah, so my uncle had been this really upstanding family man, police officer, and then he had a torrid affair with a woman, and he left someone that you could think of like June Cleaver, and went off with somebody like Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. And 7 years later, half his head was blown off and went off all their bedroom wallpaper. The second wife, confessed. Now, it was, by the way, her fourth husband, but the second wife, Suzanne, confessed, even though her fingerprints were on the gun, and also her son, my uncle's stepson, they both had fingerprints on the gun, and they took him to the police station. They were going to arrest the stepson, David, and then Suzanne said, no, I'll confess if I can get an insanity plea, which she got. She spent 11 months in a mental hospital, got out completely cured of chronic paranoid schizophrenia, which I was told in my research you never get cured of.
Huh.
And she got all my uncle's assets, including his life insurance, and she even got double indemnity on his life insurance.
Wait a minute. Even though she admitted to killing him?
Yes, yes. I mean, you can't make this up, you know. She admitted to killing him and got the life insurance and double indemnity. I asked a friend of mine, how does this happen, who runs an insurance company? He said, well, insurance companies, they don't care who they have to pay. And, you know, but she confessed to murdering him. Well, what was the verdict? Not guilty by reason of insanity. My cousin from the first marriage, from the June Cleaver marriage, she sued the insurance company and said by reason of the fact that she admitted to murdering my father, she should not benefit. And my cousin lost the court case.
So, and what is your take on it? And how is your story different, or is it not? Am I misunderstanding this?
Yeah, well, it's different because what she'd been telling people all along is that she had this psychotic break and she didn't know what she was doing, and that she went to the mental hospital. But then as I started doing the research, I found out that the gun that was used was a Mauser 8mm, and it's a very complicated bolt action. And Suzanne, this confessed murderer, she, by her own admission, had never lifted a gun before, and everybody else said that too. And I went to a gun shop and I found one of these Mauser 8mm, and the guy said, look at me, if you don't know what to do with this gun, even if I handed it to you, you would be dumbfounded. So the idea that she could pick up a very complicated weapon and take one bullet and put it in and hit my uncle in the left temple and shoot him dead, it's pretty unbelievable.
So does your book take us down an alternate path?
Yes. I have all the forensic evidence and the court documents, so it's all based on evidence that I found in the research. It's not just some theory I developed.
Okay. And your uncle Laverne was a former police officer.
Yes, and he was currently working in the state government. He'd been with the Attorney General's office, and the last job he had was with the State Medical Examiners Board doing undercover work, and so his whole life was in law enforcement. It was basically a cop killing.
Okay, so aside from who you think did it, is all the other evidence the same?
No, I mean, here's the thing. The way if you read the court documents and how Suzanne's narrative played out, it has no relationship to the forensic evidence. There's no way, if you look at the forensic documents, that her narrative could have possibly happened, which is really strange because in the courts, nobody ever brought up the discrepancies, and she couldn't have been the shooter. For example, my uncle was sitting on the bed, and there was the shooter about 6 to 8 feet away on the left of him, and the bullet hit him on the left side of the head and went all over to the right of him, all over the walls and the bed and so on. So when they went to the police station, they took brain tissue out of her hair.
Oh.
There's no way the shooter... There's no way the brain went all the way over.
So you're saying she was on the other side of him. She was somewhere on the bed on the other side.
She was, and even the first officer that I interviewed, the first officer who was on the crime scene, Kenneth Pledger, he said the same thing. She was in the room. Because she had blood splatters on her and so on.
So why was there a choice to make between her and David? How come they weren't able to arrest and convict both?
Well, she didn't allow the first thing she did after the murder, it's like 2:20 in the morning, she picked up the phone, this is before 911, and she called the sheriff in his home, and she said, "Hi, this is Susie. I just shot Vern." Now, it turns out that when I was going and looking for police records, and I called up the Dane County, because this was the Dane County sheriff she had called, and I asked for police records, the first thing this lieutenant said to me is, "That's not even our jurisdiction. the jurisdiction is Oregon, Wisconsin. Well, by making that phone call to somebody who obviously she knew because she had his home phone number, she used her first name, she made it the jurisdiction. And this sheriff, Jack Leslie, who was sheriff at the time, was run out of office several years later on ethics violations.
Oh,
so they knew each other.
So-
She knew him.
Yeah, she knew him, and I don't know how well, but there was a familiarity there, let's say. And she was somebody who used her sexuality to make things happen. So did she use it in this case? No. And then the guy who gave her the insanity plea got his medical license taken away some years later for having sex with patients.
Okay, so you started to say she used her sexuality in this case or didn't?
Well, I can't prove it, but it if you add it all up. And then the assistant district attorney who prosecuted the case, he got disbarred later for ethics violations also. So the three people that were responsible in the case with her all were corruptible.
Do you speculate in the book that she had sex with the sheriff? Is that what you're getting at?
It's possible. I mean, she or maybe promised it.
No, but I mean in the book. What? How do you tell?
Yeah, no, in the book, I say that there's a possibility she did, or that she promised it. That there was something, some kind of relationship going on.
Have you written the book as a novel so that we are following it and
No.
reading dialogue? Oh no, okay, it's more like a documentary.
Well,
I guess.
It's written not unlike In Cold Blood. That's a true story, but written in it's called non-creative, it's called creative nonfiction. So it's written in the style of a novel, but it's nonfiction.
After the trial and Suzanne was convicted and put away, where did David go? Did he stay, or where did he go?
He stayed. Yeah, he stayed. Suzanne got some people to move into her house, and he stayed, and he had one more year of high school. And his life, he never really worked out after that. I talked to some of his friends in Oregon, Wisconsin a couple years ago, and they all said the same thing, that they knew David did it. They never questioned him. They just were there to support him. But one guy said, the reason I know he did it is that, your stepfather dies, you mourn, you get over it. But David never got over it. Before the murder, they used to drink beer, and after the murder, David started getting into heavy, hard alcohol and drugs and motorcycles and all kinds of things, and he just couldn't focus on anything, and they all believed that he was the one that pulled the trigger.
In American literature, I guess, we see a lot of stories about small town injustices. Do you think injustices somehow are inherent with a small town? Is it because everybody knows each other better? And isn't the injustice that you're describing possible, something similar? Wouldn't it be possible also in like New York City?
Yes, I think that our justice system is on the whole good, but there are areas where corruption comes, and it happens when there's not enough backups or not enough other people checking on others. When one person gets too much power and there's no checks and balances on that person. I think that's what happened in the case of the Dane County Sheriff, that there were no checks and balances on him. I mean, when he got run out of office, the list of the egregious behavior he had was really, really long.
With David being in high school, I mean, what kind of gripe did he have against his uncle?
Well, my theory, and this part I can't prove, but I don't think that David
or
did
a stepfather, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah. I think that his mother put him up to it because my uncle had told some people he was going to leave her and go back to his first wife, And if you look at the research on domestic violence deaths, it's almost 100% when one person threatens to leave.
Have any of the people that you're referring to, do you keep the names accurate? Are the names correct? Are they the same?
David and Suzanne are. David died while I was doing the research. Suzanne died last year. Some of the other people, I've changed their names.
Oh, okay. So they don't. So have you had any feedback from the people close to the story?
Well, no, not yet. The book just came out. I mean, I was very close to them while I was doing it,
you're doing really well on Amazon. The book is number 28 in the hoaxes and deceptions category. I didn't even.
Oh, wow!
When David and Suzanne died, did they each commit suicide, or was it natural, or do you not know?
Well, the youngest son of Suzanne, whose name was Danny, he committed suicide. But then David just died he just dropped dead of a supposed heart attack. Oh. There were a lot of people that died around her of a heart attack, and which was to me very suspicious. But Suzanne was old; she was 88, and she, I think, died more naturally.
So I'm a little confused. When this happened, when did this all happen?
1970 is when the murder took place. It was a long time ago. David was 17, and then he died at around age 60 a few years ago. And Suzanne died last year at age 88.
Okay, so it says in 2014 you embarked on the mission to uncover the truth. So what was it that made you decide at that point, so many years later, to try to investigate this?
Well, my cousin Shannon, who was from the first marriage, she and I had been asking ourselves for probably 10 years, what happened to them? What happened to Suzanne and her family? We couldn't find them. And then the Internet started getting more and more things out, and one day Shannon found the Find a Grave of the son who had killed himself, and she was able to find mostly the rest of the family had changed their names and moved. So no wonder we couldn't find them. And she found them all, and they were in rural Tennessee, and she called me up, and I went to visit them and talk to them, and I ended up going there 4 times and talking to the family members and interviewing Suzanne.
As a writer, this is more of a writing question than specifically about this book question, but I mean, the work that you've done as a playwright, does that gift that you have to do that, did it interfere, I guess, I don't know how to ask this, but did it interfere with writing this kind of a book?
Well, no, I've written lots of kinds of books, so I've spent most of my life doing research, so the research part I was able to learn fairly quickly, even though it's not the same kind of research. I mean, I was digging through police files and court documents and probate, and then the playwriting is somewhat different, but I've written some nonfiction books that were based on research. I did one about how women are depicted in popular music from 1900 to the present. So it had, in the same way, I was writing based on the research, using a nonfiction model.
The book that we're talking about, if you're just tuning in, is called With One Shot. It's written by our guest, Dorothy Marcic. Dorothy, am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yes, you are. Perfect. Yes.
It's a true crime narrative of Dorothy Marcic's uncle's murder, correct? I'm getting this right.
Yes, my Uncle Vern.
The aunt, okay.
Yeah, and I did make an error on that. I typed aunt, and I should have typed uncle. I apologize for that. That was my fault.
Oh, no. It was the aunt that did it. Confessed to doing it anyway.
Off the air, you were telling us how emotional this was for you.
It was so unbelievable. I had no idea going into it that it would sink me into such depths of depression at times, and at other times be very healing, because I was finding out that there's something powerful about learning the truth and trying to set the justice straight. the narrative that had been played out in Madison, Wisconsin, for decades was that my uncle had somehow abused her, and she became mentally insane for maybe 5 minutes, and it killed him. But if you look at the evidence, she didn't kill him. It was likely the son. She likely put him up to it, and there's no evidence at all that he abused her. In fact, I asked the children, "Did you ever see any time my uncle abused your mother?" And all they could think of was examples when Suzanne came after my uncle with a broken bottle and scratched up his face, or when Suzanne smashed all the dishes against the wall, or things like that. They couldn't think of any example where he had abused her.
Oh, wow. So she's capable of doing those things, but you don't think that the brain matter in her hair. I mean, it indicates she's in the room, but she said she was in the room.
No, she said she was the shooter who was outside of the room.
Oh, outside the room. Okay.
Did you experience any forms of PTSD yourself when you were doing all this research?
I did, and especially the last few months. My uncle's birthday was in February, and he would have been 92, and he died at age 44. I went through weeks where I couldn't stop crying. I've never had that before in my life, and even now when I sometimes talk to people, I'm giving presentations, I just burst into tears, and I call my cousin Shannon, who was his daughter, and we'll cry for an hour and a half. I didn't even know there was so much inside of me, all these years that I've been carrying around, that you have to live your life. And you have to find a way to cope with these things.
There must have been something pushing you. I mean, who knows? I don't know why we do what we do. But in my opening, I was suggesting that perhaps, like a lot of us do, when you think about something for a while, all of a sudden the truth starts to appear to you. And maybe that's what happened for you, is after talking to your cousin, Shannon, and all that, the truth just somehow started to reveal itself.
Yes, and I needed to back that up with evidence, which is why I got the police reports and the court documents so it wouldn't be just my opinion.
Fascinating story you're telling. I do think it's probably really difficult for you to go on radio shows and tell this over and over and over again. But I appreciate the fact that you have. I think a lot of us have heard of stories that we feel were not completely just as far as the ending goes. Dorothy, any ideas to take this someplace else, to the movie world or to the stage or something?
I'd love that. Sure. I've been thinking about writing it as a play. I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. And I'd love if somebody came along and wanted to do a movie. It's such a good story, because here's the other thing that I think is maybe the most fantastic of this. After she confessed to murdering husband number 4, she got a 5th guy to marry her.
Oh, wow.
Did he live?
Wow.
Yeah, she was in her 50s by that time, so she was I think past using. But that, and then there was all these other people that mysteriously died around her. You're like, really? There's a lot to the story.
Oh man, wow. Yeah, that's the one you stay away from. Yes, exactly. Well, thank you for sharing it with us, Dorothy. I found the book on Amazon. Do you have a website you want to recommend?
Yes. Marcic, DrDorothy.com, DrDorothy.com, and you can go on I have a Facebook page with one. It's called Dorothy Marcic, and it's got all the things about the book on it.
Okay, Dorothy, thank you for being on the show with us today.
Thank you so much, Larry and Robin.
You are welcome. We will be right back.
Okay.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Chris Foster. President Trump tweets, "Get ready, Russia, because they will be coming." The "they" is missiles heading towards Syria in response to reports of a chemical weapons attack on civilians.
In comments broadcast on Lebanese TV, Russia's ambassador to Lebanon saying any U.S. missiles fired at Syria would be shot down and that the launch sites would be targeted.
Fox's Simon Owen, European airlines are being warned there could be airstrikes in the region. Another accuser testifies at Bill Cosby's retrial in Pennsylvania on sexual assault charges.
Prosecutors on Tuesday called a former actress to the stand who says Cosby in 1984 used wine to lure her into a sex act. She's the first of 5 accusers, other than Andrea Constand, that will say Cosby is a sexual predator. Cosby's attorneys say the other accusers are irrelevant to Constand's case.
Fox's Grinnell Scott. Fox News. We report, you decide.
My number 2 does not look like a number 2. I don't know what to call it. Is there a number 3?
Table for 4, please. Anything close to the restroom.
A middle seat with these stomach problems? That's my fear of flying.
Sound like you? If it does, you could be one of the many people with a digestive condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. Even if you don't know what EPI is, you might know the symptoms. Frequent diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain. If you have even just one of these symptoms, you could still have EPI, because not everybody experiences EPI the same way, which is why it's so important to open up to your doctor about all your symptoms. And the good news is, EPI is manageable, so don't keep a lid on it. Go to identifyepi.com, complete the symptom checker, and use it to have a conversation with your doctor. Don't keep a lid on it. Visit identifyepi.com. Brought to you by AbbVie.
Gene Powell Pasture Mowing, 352-629-2440. Our tractor services include bush hog, disking, front-end loader, box blade, and stump grinding. We also have zero-turn mowers for the smaller paddocks, aisleways, fence rows, and lawn care. Fence row spraying is also available for weed control. We are licensed and insured. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing, 352-629-2440, or online at powellgene, Gene, at yahoo.com. Gene Powell Pasture Mowing. Gene is a proud United States veteran.
Ready for a caring and compassionate career? Home Instead Senior Care is looking for people that are driven to succeed, learn, and have a positive attitude. These caregivers become a part of our championship team, enhancing the lives of aging adults throughout Marion County. Home Instead Senior Care provides non-medical services that allow seniors to remain in their home and meet the challenges of aging with dignity, care, and compassion. For more information, call 352-414-1566.
Are you wasting hundreds or thousands of dollars on termite retreat fees? If you're not with